So a widening rift with Riyadh. What about Washington's policy towards Iran? Well, it's all covered in a new book, Iran, an Imperialist Republic and US Policy, and the author, Walid Phares, joins us now. Great to have you with us, Walid. Your book, it documents the rise of the Islamic Republic, doesn't it? And also its strategy for survival over the decades. Can you tell us a bit about that in the context of what's happening today?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, many voices today are asking about how could Iran have been able to cross the Cold War, after the Cold War, before and after 9/11, the Arab Spring, and all the way, 3 administrations, Obama, Trump, and then Biden, and come always on top, in the sense that they were always able to get the best for them, which is, for example, in my book, I mentioned the Iran deal and all the money they got because of the Iran deal. Despite the various revolts and revolutions since 2009 and 19 and last year, they were always being able to protect their regime. And one of the answers I provided in the book is that they were very successful in creating an influence within the West in general and the United States in particular for all these years.
And of course, fast forwarding to the unraveling of the JCPOA, the Iran deal, just a year ago, Iran was looking very weak and isolated. Now it has a normalization accord with Saudi Arabia. Right now it's involved in a rapprochement between Syria and Turkey over in Moscow. Has Iran proved that it is able to survive yet again?
Yes, you're absolutely right, Laura. They have skills. They practice chess on geopolitics. They were very bad last September. They were isolated. There was a revolution inside Iran, as we discussed many times before. And of course, you had the Arab coalition. You had Israel preparing to strike if that needed to be. And of course, the U.S. Congress was pushing the administration not to sign that agreement. So what happened between September and now that Iran has been able to succeed and become successful? Well, there was a move by the Saudis, and your previous guest was talking about it just a few minutes ago, is that the Biden administration was not doing the right things, in my view, historically speaking, to make sure that they maintain those Arab allies, not just the Saudis, but the UAE, Bahrain, and to maintain Israel also close to the Arab allies through the Abraham Accords. It was a failure, and one of the results of that failure was that China came into the Middle East, and Iran maneuvered very successfully and convinced the Saudis that the Saudis should act like Switzerland, meaning not to be an ally of one or the other, and that's the result that is happening right now.
And you also mentioned in your book, of course, the assassination of General Soleimani, the general of the IRGC, and how that was a major setback for Iran. Tell us a bit more about that.
Well, of course, Iran's regime has one force, which is known as the IRCG, but also the Pasdaran. And that force is not just operational inside Iran, it's operational with their many militias in Iraq and Syria and Lebanon, with Hezbollah, and in Yemen with the Houthis. And on the top of that, you had General Soleimani and his commanders, of course, who were in charge. It looks like a common turn during the Soviet Union. They had multiple militias or communist parties around the world. By hitting Soleimani in 2020, the United States, that was the beginning of a process, not just dealing with the militia leaders, but actually with the militias on the ground. Now, that policy changed with the Biden administration deciding to go back to the Iran deal. First thing they've done in Yemen was to delist the Houthi militias from the list of terror, which was a message to the Saudi, which explained also why they were nervous about it. But Iran was coming from a very weak position now to a much stronger position than before.
We've talked about pressure from without. What about pressure from within? Do you have any hope for the protest movement inside Iran? And has the US done enough to support those protests?
That's a great question. On the one hand, yes, Iran is, as we said, succeeding geopolitically, but it reminds me of the Ottoman Empire of the 19th century. It was still an empire, but it was thick, meaning on the inside you had minorities rising. Now Iran has a uncheckable, impossible to stop social movement, especially led by women and girls and teenagers. And with this age of social media, it's very different, Laura, from what was happening in 2009 and before. I think Iran, at the end of the day, will have to face its own population, regardless of its strength in the region.
Walid Phares, great to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Walid Phares, author of Iran, Imperialist Republic.